a country deeply embroiled in conflict, facing near-constant geopolitical tension and economic pressure. Yet, in the midst of such turmoil, Israel stands as one of the wealthiest and most resilient economies in the world, with a GDP per capita in 2023 reaching around $52,000, rivaling some of Europe's most prosperous nations. How has Israel managed this seemingly paradoxical feat, thriving financially while simultaneously battling regional instability? To understand Israel's improbable economic success amidst constant conflict, picture its landscape of unyielding challenges. Since its founding, the country has grappled with wars in 1948, 1967, and 1973, each one pushing its economy to the brink. Yet, Israel's GDP per capita, which soared to $52,000 by 2023, is not a recent phenomenon. It's the culmination of decades of resilience, built on a foundation of economic, social, and technological adaptation. This ongoing story is one of a small, resource-scarce nation that learned to thrive by continuously innovating, shifting from agriculture to tech, and from vulnerability to economic fortification. Usually, war spells economic ruin. Countries embroiled in prolonged conflict typically endure resource depletion, infrastructure destruction, and a stifling of growth. However, Israel has defied this pattern. Despite its ongoing conflicts, including a turbulent Gaza situation, Israel's stock market has surged, boasting a 22% increase over the year, pushing it to an all-time high. Several factors set Israel apart, carving out a unique economic trajectory for the nation. In most nations, wartime leaves scars on infrastructure, disrupts labor forces, and drains financial reserves. For Israel, however, conflict became an unlikely catalyst for economic strategy, redefining its approach to growth. The country's 22% stock market surge in a volatile 2023 serves as a testament to the resilience woven into its financial framework, a framework originally forged in the fires of regional strife. Instead of destabilizing, each bout of tension has fortified its markets, fostering an economy that not only endures, but capitalizes on the normalization of crisis, making adaptability its greatest asset. One of Israel's crucial pillars is its enduring alliance with the United States. Since the 1960s, America has funneled over $251 billion in military and economic assistance into Israel, an alliance that strengthens Israel's defenses and shelters its economy from external sanctions. This diplomatic backing at the United Nations often shields Israel from potentially devastating economic penalties. Although Israel could defend itself militarily without American support, the added buffer against sanctions has allowed the country to stabilize and prosper without facing the full brunt of international isolation. The Israel-US alliance, dating back to the early days of the Cold War, has been a pillar of Israel's survival and economic success. More than just a political arrangement, this alliance has included initiatives such as the 1979 Camp David Accords, which brought peace with Egypt and opened trade possibilities. U.S. assistance extends beyond direct aid, including preferential trade agreements that grant Israeli goods favorable access to American markets. Furthermore, the diplomatic shield provided at the United Nations has allowed Israel to navigate sanctions and international censure that would otherwise restrict its trade, keeping its economy buoyant. Israel's economy is structured to withstand and even flourish under wartime conditions. From its founding in 1948, amid immediate military threats, Israel oriented its economy toward defense. Over the years, the country developed a sophisticated defense industry that now ranks among the world's largest. In 2023 alone, Israel's defense exports hit a record $113 billion, placing it as a top player in the global defense market. This economic resilience, however, has not come without a cost. Today, approximately 10% of Israel's GDP is funneled into military spending, straining public finances and limiting other budget allocations. As political pressures rise, particularly with subsidies for ultra-Orthodox communities and religious schools, balancing the defense budget with public spending becomes increasingly complex. Yet, despite these budgetary strains, Israel's social contract remains intact, so long as prosperity continues to accompany military preparedness. From its inception, Israel knew it needed an economy prepared to operate under siege. The establishment of military industries in the 1950s and 1960s laid the groundwork for a wartime economy. By 2023, with $113 billion in defense exports, Israel has evolved into one of the top defense suppliers globally, exporting arms, advanced surveillance technology, and cybersecurity solutions. This defense-driven economy has been undergirded by mandatory service policies, a culture of vigilance, and robust infrastructure investments aimed at ensuring the country could withstand both immediate threats and prolonged periods of instability. Israel's journey from a predominantly agrarian economy to a high-tech powerhouse is rooted in its response to crises. Following severe economic turbulence in the 1980s, Israel pivoted toward privatization, reducing state control over industries, which attracted foreign investment and opened the doors to high-tech innovations. This shift was a game-changer, positioning Israel as a critical player in global technology and creating a ripple effect that still drives the economy today. In the 1980s, Israel faced a tipping point as inflation surged past 400%, unemployment spiked, and the economy teetered on the edge of collapse. Entering into a series of sweeping reforms, Israel initiated privatization, encouraging foreign investment and shifting from an agrarian to an innovation-based economy. The transition was buoyed by a large influx of highly skilled Soviet immigrants, many of whom brought valuable expertise that accelerated Israel's high-tech revolution. By the 1990s, Israel had become known as the startup nation, with a landscape rich in venture capital, tech incubators, and globally influential firms like Checkpoint and Teva Pharmaceuticals. Unlike many of its neighbors, Israel lacks abundant natural resources and has focused on human capital and innovation to fuel growth. Much of this innovation is dual use, stemming from military technology that transitions into the civilian market. In 2023, Israel's cybersecurity sector alone, originally developed for defense, generated over $1 billion in exports. The dual-use technology model enables Israel to convert military advancements into commercial successes, fostering a high-tech sector that draws substantial foreign investment and reinforces Israel's global reputation as a technology hub. A vital element in this ecosystem is Israel's skilled workforce, largely driven by mandatory military service. Nearly every Israeli citizen undergoes military training, providing them with hands-on experience in advanced technology, leadership, and teamwork. These skills are especially prevalent among veterans from elite units, such as Unit 8200, who later fuel the civilian high-tech industry. In a close-knit society like Israel, this collective expertise has a high absorption rate, funneling talent directly into a tech-driven economy that heavily influences national growth. Israel's innovation trajectory uniquely blends military and civilian needs, exemplified by the evolution of its cybersecurity sector. Born from defense requirements, cybersecurity technologies have been refined in companies and incubators led by veterans from elite military units. This cross-pollination of military and commercial sectors means that defense innovations, from encryption to artificial intelligence, directly feed into civilian applications, enhancing both economic prospects and national security. By 2023, with over $1 billion in cybersecurity exports, Israel has transformed defense necessity into economic opportunity, attracting tech giants like Google and Microsoft to establish R&D centers. While military support is the most visible component of U.S. aid, the American alliance offers Israel additional advantages. The United States' diplomatic backing on the global stage often shields Israel from sanctions, as seen during the Gaza conflict in 2023, when the U.S. blocked efforts to impose economic penalties. This strategic alliance ensures that Israel can maintain both its economic and military strength without having to compromise one for the other. Beyond financial assistance, U.S. aid has facilitated intelligence sharing, joint defense research projects, and even co-development of missile defense systems like Iron Dome. These contributions offer Israel a dual advantage, enhancing its defensive posture and driving technological advancement that trickles down into civilian tech. Additionally, the U.S.-Israel partnership opens doors to NATO and European markets, providing Israel with indirect economic support and a stable international presence. This strategic aid secures Israel's ability to maintain economic growth, particularly during periods when military escalation threatens its regional relationships. Despite its remarkable resilience, Israel's economy faces real limits. With the recent escalation in Gaza and looming tensions with Iran and Lebanon, Israel's public finances are under mounting pressure. The budget deficit is expected to rise significantly, from 4.6% of GDP to possibly as high as 10%. Military mobilizations are disrupting essential industries, diminishing productivity, and affecting public services. In the last quarter of 2023, Israel's GDP contracted sharply by 19.8% on an annualized basis, driven by declining consumer spending, a 70% drop in private investment, and a slowdown in the real estate and tech sectors. Furthermore, the economic toll extends to Israel's debt, projected to increase from 60% to 67% of GDP by 2025. The cost of war, around $270 million weekly, is steadily eroding Israel's financial position, despite strong reserves and a manageable debt-to-GDP ratio. Israel's current challenges echo past economic trials, but the stakes have heightened. In the third quarter of 2023, as the Gaza conflict strained resources, the real estate sector saw delayed projects and rising material costs, while the tech industry faced interruptions in R&D. With investment shrinking by 70% in the private sector, Israel's reliance on foreign capital to sustain its high-tech sector is becoming precarious. Economic indicators reflect the cumulative toll of long-term conflict, and projections indicate that Israel's budget deficit, if left unaddressed, may soon approach critical levels, threatening its economic stability. Israel's unwritten social contract is showing signs of strain. For decades, the public has accepted the economic costs of conflict as long as quality of life remained relatively unaffected. Yet, as defense spending climbs, the quality of social services and living standards may come under threat. This shift poses a significant risk. If rising military costs begin to erode social services, public support for the current government approach may wane. Political complexities add further challenges, with Prime Minister Netanyahu's coalition reliant on ultra-Orthodox factions, making budget cuts in sensitive areas difficult. This inflexible spending framework could soon clash with the broader needs of a society increasingly affected by economic strain. Historically, Israel's society has shown remarkable resilience, accepting high military spending as necessary for survival. However, demographic shifts, like the growth of the ultra-Orthodox population with its own social and financial needs, complicate public spending. As a more diverse citizenry begins to question the economic sacrifices tied to defense, maintaining unity around the social contract becomes increasingly challenging. Public outcry over stagnant wages, housing shortages, and strains on healthcare hint at a shift. If economic pressures continue to undercut social services, a broader reconsideration of national priorities may ensue. To manage the swelling cost of conflict, Israel has turned to borrowing, with the hope that this approach can sustain its dual goals of security and prosperity. However, this reliance on debt may eventually force Israel to adopt unpopular austerity measures, such as tax increases or cuts to public assistance, which could further test the social contract. With borrowing becoming Israel's primary means of funding its dual objectives, economic stability and defense, concerns over national debt are mounting. Already, Israel's bond ratings have been watched closely by international agencies, and austerity measures loom on the horizon. Potential tax hikes, coupled with cuts to public assistance, could generate political backlash and possibly redefine Israel's economic landscape. As Israel weighs its options, questions around sustainable growth and debt management hint at a long-term reassessment of its economic strategies to ensure resilience without overburdening future generations. Israel's economic resilience is undeniable, built on a foundation of strategic alliances, a robust defense industry, and a culture of innovation. Yet, as conflicts continue to simmer, the government's challenge lies in balancing security needs with economic stability. Can Israel continue to borrow its way out of this situation, or will it have to make hard choices that could impact the very fabric of its society? History has shown Israel's ability to weather economic storms, but the question remains: how much strain can its unique economic model withstand before the balance shifts? Israel's story remains a study in contrasts. A nation that has mastered survival yet faces the prospect of redefining itself to sustain growth. It's a rare economic model, blending alliances, innovation, and a wartime footing to create an economy unlike any other. Yet, as Israel peers into an uncertain future, the question is no longer about sheer resilience, but about whether a continued focus on security can coexist with the societal demands of a modern, diverse economy. In this balancing act, Israel's future will be shaped not just by its history, but by its ability to adapt amid pressures that challenge its very identity.